Welcome back to Down to the Wire. I'm your host, Broden Kreitler. Whether you're a diehard sports fan or love the thrill of competition, we've got the latest highlights, breakdowns, and stories that keep sports fans on the edge of their seats. Let's jump into this week's episode.
All right. Well, thank you, Coleman, for being here with me today.
Yeah, no problem.
Starting it off here, what are your expectations for this season on and off the court?
Well, I think our coaches, we've talked a lot, and we always have high expectations, for our kids, and to expect a lot out of them as far as working hard and things like that. We've honestly been a program that really hasn't said, hey, we've got to win districts or we've got to win this for it to be successful. We don't want kids to really think about that. So, really. Our expectations are guys just to come in, work hard, be good teammates, and try to improve throughout the year. And that's what we want our guys to focus on. And because we believe that if you do those things and throughout the season and in practice, that the other stuff kind of comes, success comes. And so now, to say that we don't believe that we can win some big games this year and have a chance to win conference and districts. We definitely do have those expectations. We bring back a lot of guys. We only graduated one, and he was a big piece. But with the experience that we have and the guys that we have on the team, we do believe that we can kind of do some big things as far as in the win column and maybe winning some tournaments and things like that. So I would say we have some high expectations. We think we have guys that we can do things that maybe we haven't done in the past. So we're kind of interested in trying some of those things. Also, and then off the court, like most coaches would probably say, we want our guys to just become better people in the process.
Yeah, for sure.
We're always trying to teach things. We talk about our 6 pillars all the time: being productive and prepared, and being poised, things like that. And we want our guys to relate that to real life.
Yeah, piggyback on to what you said. You don't really try and all talk about winning. As a player, I definitely know what you're talking about there, because you guys, in practice, it's not all about winning. It's rarely do you guys ever talk about winning. It's always, just compete, work hard, and, the wins will come with that.
Yeah, I think sometimes when you really just focus on the end goal, no matter what it is, then you kind of maybe lose sight. And if you fall short, it's still not that maybe you weren't successful, because maybe you did make big improvements or you did, good things throughout that time. And just because maybe you didn't get that win, and it's kind of the same way in life, I think, for kids, need to realize that, it's the journey that you go through things. And so if you're constantly thinking, once I get here, I'll be happy. Once I get here, I'll be successful. And then, and you don't reach that, then you kind of let up. And so, we try to have that same philosophy in basketball.
Oh, for sure. Well, moving into this year, how has the team improved or maybe changed since last year?
I think, again, we bring a lot of guys back, so I don't know that there's a lot of change. We definitely are going to get, I think we've gotten stronger. I've just seen that over the first couple of weeks. And not just like lifting weights stronger, but just the way we play and tougher. We're rebounding a lot better, which is something that we're going to have to do. But we just kind of see that toughness a little bit. And I think that comes with experience. And so basically having everybody played last year and got a lot of experience, you're seeing that now.
Exactly, yep.
On the defensive end, we are probably doing something a little bit different, and that's switching screens a lot more. And I think that is a testament to the guys, too, because it's to me, it's harder to switch screens, and so they have to work a little harder, and they got to communicate. And we did that this summer, and we've seen a lot of success with it.
Oh, for sure. In practice, we're always switching screens a lot this year, and doing it in practice is definitely going to help us. I feel like our team's just definitely, getting more used to it, and like I said, we're doing it in practice a lot, which is going to translate to games.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing. One thing that we'll probably start to see in some games is getting some mismatches. That's going to be the hard part about it. Guarding people that maybe you wouldn't put them on it because they're bigger or faster or whatever. But I think we're understanding the concept, and that you can maybe guard somebody that might be a little bit faster than you by creating pressure, and then the other guys are also there to help out, so
Oh yeah, for sure.
it's a man to man, but it's
Yeah.
really like a team thing, just like most people would say.
hmm Well, as far as like I just said, compared to last year, maybe what systems or styles of offense, how are you changing up this year or keeping it pretty much the same?
Yeah, I mean, we're not really changing a whole lot as far as our offenses go. We basically run kind of some people would say a motion offense. It's kind of a
hmm
mixture between a motion screen away offense and a dribble drive attack. And we ran that last year, and it's kind of our first year. So
Yeah.
I feel like it was successful for us, or our scoring ability was pretty high. And I think some of that was because of the offense, and then, we pushed the ball, and our transition game was really
hmm
good. And so as coaches, we kind of felt like that's something that we don't really need to change. And so we'll continue to get better at that. One thing we might do is set some more ball screens. We started to do that towards the end of the year a little bit, but I do think
Yeah.
that's something we're probably going to add and do a lot more. So I don't know, offensively, I'm not really going to see, I think, a lot of changes to what we're doing. We just want to improve on it.
Yeah, and I feel like, with the guys, the same guys we had from last year pretty much, that we do a really good job on our offensive in the motion kind of action with the guys we have. I mean, it's not a set play exactly.
Yeah.
You just go off of it and, whatever happens, make the read. And I
Yeah.
feel like our guys that we have this year, did it last year and definitely used to it and are really good in that scenario.
One thing it takes is having almost all your guys have to be that way. I mean, we're doing a 4-out, 1-in. Maybe your post player doesn't have to be able to play at that manner, but we do a 5-out, and
hmm
it's sometimes it's hard to find not only 4 or 5 guys, but then your subs that come in that can play at that kind of pace and with that ability.
Oh yeah.
And we do have that. You guys do a great job of reading, and not saying that we're perfect when we do it, but I guess really the basic thing is that you guys know how to play, and you're not
Yeah.
robotic. And there's nothing wrong with robotic offenses. We've done that in the past, and we did that a couple years ago and won a district running that
hmm
kind of offense because that was the style of kids we have. And
Oh
so
yeah.
we try to adapt to that, and I think you guys are doing a great job of that.
Yeah, that definitely helps, knowing what kind of players you have that year. That definitely helps leading on to the offense and what you're trying to go for that year.
Yeah, it makes it tough in high school because you kind of, you get what you get, as far as your kids come. Colleges can kind of
hmm
run that same style most of the time because they can recruit to the style that they want to play. So if you're a person who likes bigs and setting a lot of big screens and things like that and post up, high-low action, they recruit to that style
Yeah.
like Kansas does, or you got guys like in Alabama who are the dribble drive attack, and so
hmm
they recruit to that. So
Yeah.
in the high school level, it does make it a little harder. You kind of, you get the players you got,
Oh,
and so
for
you
sure.
kind of have to change a little bit.
Yeah. Well, looking at seasons, different seasons, what do you what would you call a successful season?
I kind of think that goes back to question number one. Obviously, we set goals, and you want to win more games than you lose.
hmm
If you're looking at win-loss record, that's a big one. We kind of set a goal of trying to get to 20 wins. That's something that I haven't
Yeah.
done as a coach, who have been at 19 a few times and 18, but I think the record at St. John is 20 wins, and so we kind of in the back of our mind set that goal. Again, not
Yeah.
getting there doesn't mean we don't have success. Winning a tournament, winning a district, things like that, I think
hmm
on paper would show success. But at the end of the day, at the end of the year, we hope that a success means that guys have worked hard, improved on their game, enjoyed being on the basketball team and part of the program. It's not easy.
Yeah.
So when I say enjoy, it's not like they show up every day and have fun, but
hmm
enjoyed building relationships, and again, at the end of the year, that's kind of what we're looking for as coaches.
For sure. And that definitely brings back the topic of in practice, I was saying you don't preach winning every game. You don't always talk about winning. It's always compete, that day, whatever day it is, that practice, just compete, get better that day, and go from there. The wins will come.
Yeah, and exactly. And some coaches may think that that's maybe not the right philosophy they have that,
Mm-hmm.
but I think for us and high school kids, and so, a lot of you guys, this is the only time you'll play basketball. You're not, going to play in college. Your goal
Mm-hmm.
isn't, working to make millions in the NBA. Some guys, they enjoy other sports more. And so it's maybe their second or third sport. And
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that either. And so, those goals to me of just improving and building those relationships is what's matter and what you're going to remember. I can't tell you our record from high school. I could tell you some key games that I remember
Yeah.
and things that happened with friends during practice. But to really tell you our records and things like that really isn't what sticks in your mind.
Oh, for sure. Looking forward to this year, what are some key games or rivalries you're looking forward to the most?
Yeah, there's actually a lot, and for different reasons. I really like our DeSoto tournament at the beginning of the year because the competition is really good.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to play teams,
Yep.
have a chance to maybe play Sykeston and Cape Central and Fort Zumwalt West.
Mm-hmm.
Fox, who is a really big school, maybe hasn't been the greatest lately, but I know that they bring everybody back and Class 5, I would believe, or maybe even Class 6. So I really like that, and we've been competitive. We've never won it. And that's
Yeah.
DeSoto's kind of or is where I went to high school. And so to me, it would be nice. That's kind of something I'm looking forward to. And I think we have a team that might surprise some people in there if we're able to play well and beat some of these, better teams and well-known teams like a Sykeston or a Cape. Mentioned DeSoto. That's always a big game for me from being there. And,
Yeah.
I always have a lot of family and friends that kind of watch that and friends that have kids that are on the team. And
Mm-hmm.
so that one kind of means something to me. I know the Valley game obviously is a big rivalry game for you guys,
Oh, for
and
sure.
crosstown rivals. And then I think Hayti is another one. This is the first year we're going to play them. I think they're going to be really, really good. They're a smaller, I think, Class 2 school, but
Mm-hmm.
I think they're going to be one of those top state teams in Class 2. And so I'm kind of excited to see that game. And then
Oh,
I think
yeah.
you would have to include, your conference games are always important.
For sure, yeah. And stating back to the DeSoto tournament, early of the year, that's definitely a big one. If we do good in it, that's definitely going to make a statement at the beginning of the year, and you definitely want that moving forward. And it's your first pretty much games of the season. So.
Yeah, I think it gives you confidence.
Oh, for sure.
If you can knock off one of those teams, and and I think that's even if we've lost, we've played Sykeston, who's
Mm-hmm.
usually a top 10 team in the state in Class 5. We've played close to them, and I
Yeah.
think that gives us some confidence knowing that we can play with a lot of teams. And then there's tournaments that you coming up, our Christmas tournament. Getting wins against good teams like that is
Oh, for
something
sure,
that
yeah.
kind of maybe helps you when it comes to seeding those tournaments also.
Yeah. Getting into a bit of, I guess, your coaching background. What got you into coaching basketball?
Yeah, that's kind of a funny, I don't know if it's funny, but a different story. I actually, I was a college football player, and when I was in college, I didn't think much. I wanted to be a teacher. That's what I was going to school for. I figured I would coach, but kind of figured I would coach football,
Mhm.
since that's kind of what I was better at. I played high school basketball, and Mark Gibson, Coach Gibson, who was the basketball coach here. I grew up. He was from DeSoto. He was kind of like a father figure to me. Was teaching down here, and he, was coaching basketball. He said, "Hey, how would you like to come down and help?" I was able to do my student teaching in the second grade here,
Mhm.
and so that year when I was doing my student teaching the second semester, I just kind of helped out for just for fun, and then I got a job here. It was kind of a good
Yeah.
end. And so when I got a job here the next year, I was an assistant for Coach Gibson. I also kind of got into football coaching. We coached middle school football together. And then after I think 1 year, maybe two, I can't remember, Gibson decided he kind of wanted to give that up, and I just kind of fell into place. So I didn't have a lot of experience as far as being a head coach or really coaching in general a year.
Yeah.
And so it just kind of opened up, and I took it. And I still didn't think that this would be like something I would do
Yeah.
for
A huge
30
part of your
years
life. Yeah.
for basketball, because I again was still doing football and thought maybe I would move up through the ranks there or something. And honestly, never thought about being a head coach. When I thought about coaching football, I thought I would be an assistant and work with running backs and things like that because that's what I did. And I
Hmm.
kind of fell in love with it. Not that I still don't like football. I do. I watch it all the time, but basketball, for some reason, the coaching aspect just seemed a little bit more exciting for me, and
Yeah.
I love coaching in practice, especially. And so that's kind of how I got my start, and that's been about 20 years ago. So
Wow. Big football guy. I didn't know you were that big of a football guy.
yeah, I mean, like I said, and it was my number one sport, high school. Went to college. It was what I was best at, just because of probably not that I was a bad basketball player. I
Yeah.
was pretty good at that too, but just my skill level and my attributes really went to football. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was a fun playing college football for 4 years. It was a small Division III school, but still got to go on road
Oh
trips
yeah.
and played in Minnesota and Oklahoma and Illinois and or South Dakota. So got to travel
Oh
and
yeah.
really
That's
make some strong relationships with those guys. We were actually pretty good. Won two conference championships too my junior and
really
senior year, and
wow.
got to play in the Minnesota Vikings dome. Back then, the Vikings had their dome, and that's
Dang.
where our conference championship was. So yeah, that was a big part, and I kind of figured that's what I would continue to do. But I guess life just had something different for me.
Yeah. Well, I think, playing football and basketball, and you said you were a football coach for a while, that definitely helps being a basketball coach. You maybe see some different drills, some different things to help athletes get better, not just at basketball, but being a better athlete in general. Some things a lot of football coaches do to help athletes get better at being an athlete, and that
Yeah,
definitely helps.
yeah. There's a lot of overlap in every sport. Obviously, there's a lot of difference too, whether it's hand-eye coordination or just toughness and your foot movement and things like that. And so, I did learn a lot about that type of thing going through,
Hmm.
football. And I definitely pull that into basketball. I mean, when I became a basketball coach, I was always a defensive guy, anyways, in basketball. So when I first started, that was kind of what I knew best and
Yeah.
what we focused on. And I felt like our teams were really good, and we were strong, and we knew how to rebound, and things like that. And but my offense wasn't. I don't think my offensive coaching was very good, and so that's something I've had to learn a lot. But I try to preach to kids all the time about playing multiple sports
Hmm.
because it does help you. I have no doubt in my mind that as a football player and going to college, that basketball, the agility and the footwork, carried over into the football field. That was one of my strengths, my agility. I wasn't super fast.
Yeah.
I was a running back that ran the ball hard and a
Hmm.
lot. Never could break an 80-yard touchdown because I didn't have that breakaway speed,
Yeah.
but I was shifty and tough. And I think that kind of came from probably being a basketball player.
Oh,
It
for sure.
definitely
Yeah.
helped. And I think vice versa. Not that I have guys that aren't tough basketball players, but usually those football guys that play basketball, they just come in and they have a little bit of that toughness,
Oh
the
yeah.
contact.
Yeah.
They're used to that kind of physicality.
Hmm.
And so I think it just helps all around to be a well-rounded athlete.
Oh yeah, for sure. It definitely helps playing football or any other sport leading into basketball. As far as coaching style, how do you think your coaching style has changed, throughout the years?
Yeah, I guess style is a question or what I'm not sure what you might be looking for there, but I think if I had a more of a philosophy than a style, I guess it is something I'll steal from Coach Robinson, who constantly talks about a blue collar worker,
Hmm.
and that's kind of he guy he is. And I think that, and I'm kind of the same way. Is we just want to outwork people.
Oh yeah.
It was funny or kind of nice. We got to go up and see Michigan State practice this
Hmm.
this year, and Tom Izzo, and I think we have those same philosophies. He's big on defense and rebounding and playing tough, and I think that's kind of the style and the kind of philosophy that we have here. Especially. Because it is a football school,
Oh yeah.
and you have those type of players. When I first started, that's kind of especially the way we played, and there was a
Hmm.
lot of referees that I don't know if they would admit it, but I've heard other people say that that's how we played on the basketball court, and then a lot of times they called it that way.
Yeah.
We would be in a lot of foul trouble because they just said we were too physical and too tough the way we played.
Yeah.
We've gotten better at that. I'm not saying we weren't that physical, but I think that's just the style that we like as coaches. Because it's what you can control. The offensive stuff, obviously, you can work on that. I really tell our guys a lot of times, when basketball season starts, if you're not working on your shot, you can improve a little bit, but if you're going to be a great shooter, you got to do that outside of the season. And so what we can control is how hard we work and how tough we are and how good our defense is.
For sure, yeah. That definitely, with the time you have in practice, you can't devote it all to just skill development. You definitely got to work team-wise, team-based things to help the team get better, chemistry, just overall team play.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
like you were just talking about, if you want to be good, you got to, outside of practice, get those skill work in and, shoot.
Yeah, dribbling, shooting, those two things basically are things that you can do on your own too, and that's a great thing about basketball. If you have a ball, in a basket, you can work on those things by yourself. And like you mentioned, in practice, there's just not enough time. I mean, unless we would practice for 3.5 hours a day, there's not enough time to get all those things in. I think, we do a pretty good job of moving practice along fast and trying to get as much different things in. But to me, it just, again, comes back to how hard are you going to work in your fundamentals and how tough you're going to be when it comes to game time.
All right, I got one last question for you. If you could coach any NBA player in history, who would it be and why?
Yeah, well, it's tough. I mean, there's a lot of good players, and I know somebody made a comment yesterday or the day before in practice that I was a 90s guy.
That was me.
And so I guess I would probably go back to some of those guys, and then there was a lot of good ones, and I'm not picking this guy because I think he is probably the greatest player of all time, Michael Jordan. But the one reason why I would pick him, and I'm sure there's plenty of other guys, Larry Bird comes to mind, Tim Duncan, guys like that. But, Michael Jordan, I think if most people would realize, that separates him from everybody else is how hard he did work and in practice. I mean, and of course I wasn't there, but from what you read and what you see in the documentary and things, that how hard he pushed himself and others, to me, that's a guy I want to coach.
For sure,
and so, because when you got a guy like that, whether he is the best player on the team, or the 10th guy that comes off the bench that plays, when you have guys like that have that drive, to me, those are fun guys to coach, because no matter what, they're gonna do what you say and get after it, push each other, and they're not gonna take things for granted.
Yeah.
And so to me, those are the fun guys to have around. And so again, I'm sure there's a lot more guys that have that kind of attribute. But being from the 90s and seeing that, I guess that would be who I would choose.
And like you said, he's a hard worker and definitely takes a lot of pride in how hard he works and, all the things he does during practice to prepare for the games. That would definitely suit, like we were just talking about, your coaching style, the blue collar.
Yeah.
That I knew you were going to pick him, but that definitely translates to, your coaching.
And again, not because he's the probably the greatest player, because it's hard to decide that with different eras and things, because like I said, there's a lot of good players out there and people who have won more. I mean, Bill Russell, and so depending on what statistics you want to look at, who's the best player, but that kind of drive is what I enjoy and out of players. So I think he would be the one.
All right, well. You heard it from Coleman. Thank you for coming in today, spending a little time talking, about expectations and what we have in store for this season.
I appreciate you having me.
Oh, yeah.
Enjoyed it.
Best of luck this season. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for this week's podcast. Thank you for listening and tuning in. If you want to hear more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, be sure to go check out our one-stop shop website for future sporting events, rosters, blogs, sponsors, and live broadcasts. To get there, just look up sjhssportstream.com.